Hello, this is a conversation with Rorhof Publishing House. My name is Anna-Kaisa Rastenberger. I'm the artistic director of the Festival of Political Photography. The Festival of Political Photography was founded 2014, and this year, 2021, we will have our 5th edition, and the theme of this edition is Bird's Eye View. So welcome, Rorhof Publishing House. It's really great to have you here in this Zoom conversation. Maybe if you could first introduce yourselves and tell very shortly, what is Rorhof? What do you do?
Hi, so this is Rorhof, this is Allegra and Nicolò and Audrey. We are Rorhof, we're a publishing house. We were founded in 2014 and we are an independent publishing house, and we're based in Bolzano, Bozen in South Tyrol, in northern part of Italy near Austria. And we're actually based in an old farmhouse, which also is basic to our enterprise because we try to be as independent as a farmhouse used to be in the past, in the sense that we try to produce every part of our books ourselves from the start till the end. We focus on visual books, also through photography, the history of photography and its archival histories. And we publish 4 titles per year, and we try and also distribute our books through international fairs or festivals like the one in Helsinki. So yeah, that's us.
Yeah, so but you do also exhibitions and other things.
Yeah, we do. So the book is a means through which we also open up and close up and transform into workshops and exhibitions. So we use the book as a multi-purpose object to teach, to show, to tell, and to disseminate ideas in a democratic form and format. And
how many people are part of your publishing house?
So at the very moment, it's 4 of us. It's the founder, Nicolò, and his brother, Michele, who helps us mainly with some exhibition-related projects. It's my sister, Federica, who helps us a little bit with the accounting, and it's myself, who tries and juggle all the rest.
Okay. Thank you. So we are really thrilled to have your project Pigeon Photographer in Helsinki this year, and hopefully you too. So can you just tell briefly about the project, the Pigeon Photographer project? Why did you get interested in pigeons and cameras, and how did you find the material?
Well, the first time I discovered the project was I was visiting the Spy Museum in Berlin, and they had a little miniature pigeon photography camera placed on a stuffed pigeon and a taxidermy of a pigeon. And I got interested in the topic, and so I kind of picked it up as an idea and then started a little bit doing some research. We started here in the studio. And at a certain point, also Audrey came to work at Rorhof and picked up the project. And that was, I think, a great starting point where the archival research actually took form. And we kept on working on the project, so both researching and then also digitalizing the images that we found in the 2 archives.
So, as I've seen the project, it consists about a book and a newspaper and the really nice text by Jan von Kuberta, but also exhibitions with new kind of images that Pigeon took, and also portraits about pigeons. But you did quite a remarkable research on cultural history of pigeon photographers, right? Because at least in the newspaper there is a lot of different clips from different news about this project and pigeon photographers. How did you work on that?
I think when we were doing the research, we were surprised ourselves about the whole story that was behind it, and so it was inevitable that not only trying to sort of track down the images taken by these pigeons and seeing so actually and behind it, and also having a look at the role of pigeons, maybe in a broader sense within our society as messengers, but also as photographers that were employed in shows, that were employed in war by military, and understanding what a service they to humanity. And I think the newspaper articles are interesting because they show, despite it being a very short-lived story, because it was then taken over by aerial photography and further technology, but it still shows how it was communicated in many different countries over the world.
Can you very briefly also now describe for the audience, like what is the kind of the very basic idea why pigeons started taking photographs? Who invented the camera?
Well, the inventor was a pharmacist. His name was Julius Neubronner. He used to live in Kronberg in Germany, and he used pigeons to transport medicine from the clinic to the pharmacy, to the drugstore. And the story should go like this, that at a certain point, one pigeon got lost. And after several days, he came back. And so he got the idea and thought about where did the pigeon fly to and what did he see. So he came up with this idea. Mm. Did I forget anything, Audrey? Maybe.
Well, it was his favorite pigeon. That might have made a difference. And yeah, I think other than that, he was an amateur photographer, so that was already in his mind, probably.
Yeah, the story also is placed in a setting, I think also historically, where people were entrepreneurs, both in photography and in science. And a lot of research was doing and self-experimentation. So it's interesting how he came up with the idea, but also how he ended up developing the idea. Yeah. So it was not just about creating a mechanical apparatus, a camera, but it was also to train the pigeons. So there was a biological part of it. So he had to train pigeons to carry the load. He had to change the way pigeons were flying back home. So he had to develop several techniques that were on both sides, like mechanical and biological, which is fascinating.
So what do you think that now when we are looking at the images, the photographic images the pigeons took, that like how do you see the role of the animal in this kind of a project? You said it's about programming the camera and training the pigeon. Like how do you see this kind of a triangle, the animals, humans, and camera technology as part of the project?
Well, I think what I'm fascinated, it's about the randomness. I mean, despite programming all you want to program, I mean, at the end, the shot you're gonna get is not your choice. I mean, it's dictated a little bit by the time, a bit by the trajectory, but also, I mean, by lots of things that come from the pigeon itself. So there is a bit of programming, but just to a certain point. And then there is like a passive viewpoint where you just see what's happening and then you discover what's actually happening.
And I think it's interesting, it is also that there's this innate human desire to sort of go beyond our own limitations. And technology, and I think camera technology in itself is one of those tools that helps us to see things that we can't see due to our own physical limitations. And it's interesting to sort of be employing that with the help of animals before we then go on to develop maybe a drone. But the animal is sort of the pigeon is the first sort of more rudimentary solution to seeing the world from above, or seeing it from a different perspective, through a different lens, to overcome something which we can't do ourselves.
What we have been thinking on this year in the festival, what is one of the kind of a basic theme, is this distance between the nature and the human, and how camera technology is, in the one hand, it has helped people to understand the nature, and it has been like a great tool for the science. But on the other hand, it has created the distance between something which is observed and the person, the human being who is observing. And as Fontcuberta writes in his text, it's these pigeon cameras is one step that has also led towards this direction. What did you learn when you were working on this project?
Well, you learn a little bit of the life of the pigeon, how you train, how communication was working at the time, how smart they are. Like you see how different the relationship was with animals, like how symbiotic it was. So we also regard lots of, I think there was still a very strong relationship in that sense.
Yeah, I think it's sort of developed a fascination and interest for an animal that nowadays we don't really think about, because it's sort of, now we just see pigeons sort of as the annoying bird of the city, but we forget the whole history of the pigeon and its role in society, and how much they've given us, and we've worked with them as animals, and so definitely learned a lot on that side.
Maybe also about authoriality, so what it means to have ideas that are original and to be able to sell them and to gain from them. So patenting ideas, and about an idea changing its purpose from the very beginning to what it can become. So if the beginning was maybe an artistic purpose, then it becomes a military purpose, and then it becomes again an artistic, in this case, for example, in 2021. So there's unexpected ways in which ideas can turn into something different, which the author doesn't have any control over.
I still would like to ask that what fascinates you in that period of time, where I know you've been focusing several times on that, the end of 19th century, beginning of 20th century. What can we learn from that? Why are you fascinated archives that relates to that period of time?
Well, I would say the most spontaneous thing, at least from my side, is that, there is the birth of photography, and also many technological advances in how images were printed and distributed. So it's kind of like an epoch where really visual language kind of blossomed. So that's kind of unique. You assist, and if you look at all these books and these images, you kind of see that, there's still certain patterns that keep repeating in composition. It's visual. So I think that's probably one of the main focus, like the change, like all the things that particular time triggered afterwards.
Yeah, maybe also the fact that culture and industry started going hand in hand. So there was a big change in the way that culture was disseminated, and in which education changed in school as well. So the book became central, but in a new kind of way. So first book covers started to emerge. So there was also a new spur in design, for example, and the way that the book was conceived was no longer the way it was conceived in, the Middle Ages. So there was like no collation anymore, but it was new technologies came in, so everything changed. And then also international fairs and exhibitions started to exist. So books and other photography and other media started to become central to the way that culture was diffused, and also groups of artists who came together, like in the UK especially, for example, William Morris, etc. So there was a big development in the way that visual culture was shaped by things that weren't necessarily connected to the visual realm beforehand. So it was all about collecting, it was all about also fashions that came and went, and so it was all very fast-paced, and the whole period that went from 1789 to 1914 was also marked by lots of wars, but also by the end of the Enlightenment period, and then the start of more like the ancien regime stopped, so there were new political systems, and so imperialism kind of dropped, but then there was new spur in colonialism, so everything was different. So ways of trading, ways of producing things were evolving. So naturally, the book was it's a good way to measure how things changed, and the long 19th century is so long that it allows a very big overview of how things actually evolved.
Mm-hmm. Is there any kind of, do you see the link, like when you started describing that era and all these changes and development that took place, like how can we understand our contemporary visual culture through that? Is there ways to kind of tools we could use that you've found from that era, or?
Well, basics, like from the fun to the serious, I would say there's a whole range of things. So I don't know, there's in the box we produced, there's books on cats and kittens, which would make sense in an Instagram culture kind of way of appreciating animals, and pictures of puppies and things like that. But then there's also things like visual tropes that are recurring. So like books about colors, so that would make our present day color palettes or things like that. There's also landscapes, then there's also things like science and magic and phantoms, and all things that nowadays exist in various forms, but they all have a root back in the long 19th century.
It was not we tried not to divide illustration and photography, or like travel photography, which might come close to documentary photography nowadays, to anything else. So it was really to look at images, to choose images within a book, only images, to remove all the text, and to see also what the title in combination with the image would trigger as a conceptual understanding.
As a matter of fact, there's an evolution of the project. It's called the Short 21st Century, and it's a way through which we ask participants in workshops that we do with the fanzines to respond to the 250 fanzines that we produce in the box with one of their own. So it's a nice way to see how images trigger other images, and then they trigger other ideas, and then it's basically an infinite series of visual triggers. And that's also about randomness, but it's also about
disappearing things,
or things re-emerging, or also association of ideas, or also maybe a collective memory.
And as we are doing now on internet, it's really kind of a similar images triggering other images, and the people are responding images with other images. So thank you, Rorhof, and see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.